Okay, testing the audio. Is anyone there to hear me? Alright, I think this is looking a lot better. If anyone can just confirm in the chat if they hear me. Okay, thank you. Jai Shri Radhe, everybody. Thank you for showing up tonight for our study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're starting tonight with Canto 1, Chapter 12, Verse 20. And before I begin, I just want to give my humble obeisances to the assembled devotees and my guru, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, and to the first guru, Sri Brahma. And I would also like to offer my humble obeisances to Saraswati Devi, the goddess of education. So tonight, real quick before I get into the reading, I just wanted to get into some housekeeping. Last night I said that I gave my number and email to a number of ISKCON devotees so that they could contact me, and that was kind of a misspeak. I gave it to actually one person, and they were the record keeper for the temple, and they said that they would get back to me, but they didn't. So I wanted to clarify that. And there was also a guy that was doing PR for the local news stations and whatnot, and he said he would get back with me again later that night, but he never did. And so another thing I wanted to cover tonight was to please urge anyone, if there's anyone out there that wants to preach. This is kind of why I'm doing this to begin with, is I'm trying to motivate others out there to preach. Especially, I was noticing that there are a number of women that are my friends on Facebook now, and I think they should start preaching, very much so, because I noticed one of my friends was just preaching today, and it was the first time I'd ever noticed them preaching on Facebook Live, and I just think that women, especially on social media, tend to get a lot more attention than men. So I think if we get some women preachers on here, you don't have to do anything crazy. Just come on and start reading from any of Prabhupada's books, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam. I think that once we start getting women preachers, then we can start really seeing movement among our society once again. And until then, I don't know how far we're going to go, so I beg you. You don't have to be brahmachari, you don't have to be perfect, but come on and please participate in Sankirtan. Please spread this movement further, male or female, but I do think that more females need to be doing this. So, moving on, I guess we can begin here. So, alright, Canto 1, Chapter 12, Verse 20. Esa data saranyaska yataha asinara sibi yaso vidanita svanam dashyantir iva yajvanam. Okay, synonyms there. Esha, this child. Data, donor in charity. Saranya, protector of the surrendered. ka and yata as hi, certainly, Ashin Nara, the country named Usunara, Sibi, Yasa, fame, Vitanita, the disseminator, Shvanam, of the kinsmen, Dalshananti Iva, like Bharata, the son of Dushyanta, Yajvanam, of those who have performed many sacrifices. Welcome, Bhagavtam Veronica. Thank you for joining us. Okay, translation. This child will be a munificent donor of charity and protector of the surrendered, like the famous King Sibi of the Usinara country. And he will expand the name and fame of his family like Bharata, the son of Maharaj Dushyanta. Okay. So the purport here, a king becomes famous by his acts of charity, performances of yajnas, protection of the surrendered, etc. A Kshatriya king is proud to give protection to the surrendered souls. This attitude of a king is called Ishvarabhav, or factual power to give protection in a righteous cause. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord instructs living beings to surrender unto him, and he promises all protection. The Lord is all-powerful and true to his word, and therefore he never fails to give protection to his different devotees. The king, being representative of the Lord, must possess this attitude of giving protection to the surrendered souls at all risk. Maharaj Sibi, the king of Usinara, was an intimate friend of Maharaj Yayati, who was able to reach the heavenly planets along with Maharaj Sibi. Maharaj Sibi was aware of the heavenly planet where he was to be transferred after his death, and the description of this heavenly planet is given in the Mahabharata, in the Adi Parva, 96, 6-9. Maharaj Sibi was so charitably disposed that he wanted to give over his acquired position in the heavenly kingdom to Yayati, but he did not accept it. Yayati went to the heavenly planet along with great rishis like Astaka and others. On inquiry from the rishis, Yayati gave an account of Sibi's pious acts when all of them were on the path to heaven. He has become a member of the assembly of Yamaraj, who has become his worshipful deity. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, the worshipper of the demigods goes to the planets of the demigods. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. So Maharaj Sibi has become an associate of the great Vaishnava authority Yamaraj on that particular planet. While he was on earth, he became very famous as a protector of surrendered souls and a donor of charities. The king of heaven once took the shape of a pigeon hunter bird, or eagle, and Agni, the fire god, took the shape of a pigeon. The pigeon, while being chased by the eagle, took shelter on the lap of Maharaj Sibi, and the hunter eagle wanted the pigeon back from the king. The king wanted to give it some other meat to eat and requested the bird not to kill the pigeon. The hunter bird refused to accept the king's offer, but it was settled later on that the eagle would accept flesh from the body of the king of the pigeon's equivalent weight. The king began to cut flesh from his body to weigh in the balance equivalent to the weight of the pigeon, but the mystic pigeon always remained heavier. The king then put himself on the balance to equate with the pigeon, and the demigods were pleased with him. The king of heaven and the fire god disclosed their identity, and the king was blessed by them. Devarishi Narada, also glorified Maharaj Sibi for his great achievements, specifically in charity and protection. Maharaj Sibi sacrificed his own son for the satisfaction of human beings in his kingdom, and thus child Parikshit was to become a second Sibi in charity and protection. Okay, now we have a subheading for Dausyanti Bharata. There are many Bharatas in history, of which Bharata, the brother of Lord Rama, Bharata, the king of King Rishabha, and Bharata, the king of Maharaj Dushyanta, are very famous. And all these Bharatas are historically known to the universe. This earth planet is known as Bharata, or Bharatavarsha, due to King Bharata, the son of Rishabha. But according to some, this land is known as Bharat due to the reign of the son of Dushyanta. So far as we are convinced, this land's name, Bharatavarsha, was established from the reign of Bharata, the son of King Rishabha. Before him, the land was known as Ilavarta Varsha. But just after the coronation of Bharat, the son of Rishabha, this land became famous as Bharatvarsha. But despite all this, Bharata, the son of Maharaj Dushyanta, was not less important. He is the son of the famous beauty Sakuntala. Maharaj Dushyanta fell in love with Shakuntala in the forest, and Bharat was conceived. After that, Maharaj forgot his wife, Sakuntala, by the curse of Kanva Muni, and the child Bharat was brought up in the forest by his mother. Even in his childhood, he was so powerful that he challenged the lions and elephants in the forest and would fight with them as little children play with cats and dogs. Because of the boys becoming so strong, more than the so-called modern Tarzan, the rishis in the forest called him Sarvadamana, or one who is able to control everyone. A full description of Maharaj Bharat is given in the Mahabharata, Adiparva. The Pandavas or the Kurus are sometimes addressed as Bharata due to being born in the dynasty of the famous Maharaj Bharat, the son of King Dushyanta. Okay, on to the next one. Danvinam agranirisha tuyas karjunayo devayo hutasha iva durdarsha shamudra iva dushtara. Synonyms: Danvinam, of the great bowman; Angrani, the foreman; Esha, this child; Tulya, equally good; Ka, and; Arjunayo, of the Arjunas; Devayo, of the two; Hutasha, fire; Eva, like; Durdarharsha, irresistible; Samudra, ocean; Eva, like; Dushtara, unsurpassable. The translation: amongst great bowmen, this child will be as good as Arjuna. He will be as irresistible as fire and as unsurpassable as the ocean. So, these synonyms are interesting here. He will be as irresistible as fire. So, specifically, when we talk about fire in the state of being irresistible, we think about what fire is good for. So, you cannot resist a good meal. It's used for cooking food. You can't resist a good meal. The main thing here, of course, is that fire provides heat. And so, in the cold, you can't resist building a fire to stay warm. So really it's talking about King Parikshit is going to be as warm as fire, so warm-hearted. And when it says unsurpassable as the ocean, it means that he will not be crossed. He is fixed in his goodness, and he will not allow anything below his standards. Welcome, Gary. So, looking at the purport here, I guess we can start reading that. In history, there are two Arjunas. One is Kartavirya Arjuna, the king of Haihaya. Welcome, Kamlendra Singh Rathore. Hope I pronounced your name okay. I'm, of course, foreign-tongued, so I butcher pretty much every foreign-sounding word here, but hopefully you can forgive me. Hare Krishna to you. Obeisances to you and Gary there. So, alright, so there's a subheading here for Pandava Arjuna. This is, of course, the great hero of the Bhagavad Gita. He is the Kshatriya son of Maharaj Pandu. Queen Kunti Devi could call for any one of the demigods, and thus she called Indra, and Arjuna was born by him. Arjuna is therefore a plenary part of the heavenly king Indra. He was born in the month of Phalguna, which is February-March, and therefore he is also called Phalguni. When he appeared as the son of Kunti, his future greatness was proclaimed by air messages, and all the important personalities from different parts of the universe, such as the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Adityas from the sun globe, the Rudras, the Vasus, the Nagas, the different rishis, sages of importance, and the Apsaras, the society girls of heaven, all attended the ceremony. The Apsaras pleased everyone by their heavenly dances and songs. Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna and the maternal uncle of Arjuna, sent his priest representative Kashyapa to purify Arjuna by all the prescribed samskaras, or reformatory processes. His samskara of being given a name was performed in the presence of the rishis, residents of Satashringa. He married 4 wives, Draupadi, Subhadra, Citrangada, and Ulupi, from whom he got 4 sons of the names Shrutakirti, Abhimanyu, Babruvahana, and Iravan, respectively. During his student life, he was entrusted to study under the great professor Dronacharya, along with other Pandavas and the Kurus. But he excelled everyone by his studious intensity, and Dronacharya was especially attracted by his disciplinary affection. Dronacharya accepted him as a first-grade scholar, and loved heartily to bestow upon him all the blessings of military science. He was so ardent a student that he used to practice bowmanship even at night, and for all these reasons Professor Dronacharya was determined to make him the topmost bowman of the world. He passed very brilliantly the examination in piercing the target, and Dronacharya was very pleased. Royal families at Manipura and Tripura are descendants of Arjuna's son Babruvahana. Arjuna saved Dronacharya from the attack of a crocodile, and the Acharya, being pleased with him, rewarded him with a weapon of the name Brahmashiras. Maharaj Drupada was inimical toward Dronacharya, and thus when he attacked the Acharya, Arjuna got him arrested and brought him before Dronacharya. He besieged a city of the name Ahikchatra, belonging to Maharaj Drupada, and after taking it over, he gave it to Dronacharya. The confidential treatment of the weapon Brahmashiras was explained to Arjuna, and Dronacharya was promised by Arjuna that he would use the weapon if necessary when he, Dronacharya, personally became an enemy of Arjuna. By this, the Acharya forecasted the future battle of Kurukshetra, in which Dronacharya was on the opposite side. Maharaj Drupada, although defeated by Arjuna on behalf of his professor Dronacharya, decided to hand over his daughter Draupadi to the young combatant, but he was disappointed when he heard the false news of Arjuna's death in the fire of a shellak house, intrigued by Duryodhana. He therefore arranged for Draupadi's personal selection of a groom who could pierce the eye of a fish hanging in the ceiling. This trick was especially made because only Arjuna could do it, and he was successful in his desire to hand over his equally worthy daughter to Arjuna. Arjuna's brothers were at the time living incognito under the agreement with Duryodhana, and Arjuna and his brothers attended the meeting of Draupadi's selection in the dress of brahmanas. When all the Kshatriya kings assembled saw that a poor brahmana had been garlanded by Draupadi for her lord, Sri Krishna disclosed his identity to Balaram. He met Ulupi at Haridwar, and he was attracted by that girl belonging to Nagaloka, and thus Iravan was born. Similarly, he met Citrangada, a daughter of the king of Manipura, and thus Babruvahana was born. Lord Sri Krishna made a plan to help Arjuna to kidnap Subhadra, sister of Sri Krishna, because Baladeva was inclined to hand her over to Duryodhana. Yudhishthira also agreed with Sri Krishna, and thus Subhadra was taken by force by Arjuna and then married to him. Subhadra's son is Abhimanyu, the father of Parikshit Maharaj, the posthumous child. Arjuna satisfied the fire god by setting fire to the Khandava forest, and thus the fire god gave him one weapon. Indra was angry when the fire was set in the Khandava forest, and thus Indra, assisted by all other demigods, began fighting with Arjuna for his great challenge. They were defeated by Arjuna, and Indradeva returned to his heavenly kingdom. Arjuna also promised all protection to one Mayashura, and the latter presented him one valuable conch shell, celebrated as the Devadatta. Similarly, he received many other valuable weapons from Indradeva when he was satisfied to see his chivalry. When Maharaj Yudhishthira was disappointed in defeating the king of Magadha, Jarasandha, it was Arjuna only who gave King Yudhishthira all kinds of assurances, and thus Arjuna, Bhima, and Lord Krishna started for Magadha to kill Jarasandha. When he went out to bring all other kings of the world under the subjection of the Pandavas, as was usual after the coronation of every emperor, he conquered the country named Kalinda and brought in subjugation King Bhagadatta. Then he traveled through countries like Antagiri, Ulukupura, and Modapura, and brought under subjugation all the rulers. Sometimes he underwent severe types of penances, and later on he was rewarded by Indradeva. Lord Shiva also wanted to try the strength of Arjuna, and in the form of an aborigine, Lord Shiva met him. There was a great fight between the two, and at last Lord Shiva was satisfied with him and disclosed his identity. Arjuna prayed to the Lord in all humbleness, and the Lord, being pleased with him, presented him the Pashupata weapon. He acquired many other important weapons from different demigods. He received Dandashtra from Yamaraj, Pasashtra from Varuna, and Antardhanashtra from Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly kingdom. Indra wanted him to come to the heavenly kingdom, the Indraloka planet beyond the moon planet. In that planet, he was cordially received by the local residents, and he was awarded reception in the heavenly parliament of Indradeva. When he met Indradeva, who not only presented him with his Vajra weapon, but also taught him the military and musical science as used in the heavenly planet. In one sense, Indra is the real father of Arjuna, and therefore indirectly he wanted to entertain Arjuna with the famous society girl of heaven, Urvashi, the celebrated beauty. The society girls of heaven are lusty, and Urvashi was very eager to contact Arjuna, the strongest human being. She met him in his room and expressed her desires, but Arjuna sustained this impeachable character by closing his eyes before Urvashi, addressing her as mother of Kuru dynasty, and placing her in the category of his mothers Kunti, Madri, and Sachi Devi, the wife of Indradeva. Disappointed, Urvashi cursed Arjuna and left. In the heavenly planet, he also met the great celebrated ascetic Lomasa and prayed to him for the protection of Maharaj Yudhishthira. When his inimical cousin Duryodhana was under the clutches of the Gandharvas, he wanted to save him and requested the Gandharvas to release Duryodhana, but the Gandharvas refused, and thus he fought with them and got Duryodhana released. When all the Pandavas lived incognito, he presented himself in the court of King Virata as a eunuch and was employed as the musical teacher of Uttara, his future daughter-in-law, and was known in the Virata court as the Brahmanala. As the Brahmanala, he fought on behalf of Uttara, the son of King Virata, and thus defeated the Kurus in the fight incognito. His secret weapons were safely kept in the custody of a Somi tree, and he ordered Uttara to get them back. His identity and his brother's identity were later on disclosed to Uttara. Dronacharya was informed of Arjuna's presence in the fight of the Kurus and the Viratas. Later, on the Battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna killed a great many generals like Karna and others. After the Battle of Kurukshetra, he punished Ashvatthama, who had killed all the 5 sons of Draupadi. Then all the brothers went to Bhismadeva. It is due to Arjuna only that the great philosophical discourses of the Bhagavad Gita were again spoken by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. His wonderful acts on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are vividly described in the Mahabharata. Arjuna was defeated, however, by his son Babhruvahana at Manipura and fell unconscious when Ulupi saved him. After the disappearance of Lord Krishna, the message was brought by Arjuna to Maharaj Yudhishthira. Again, Arjuna visited Dvaraka, and the widow wives of Lord Krishna lamented before him. He took them all in the presence of Vasudeva and pacified all of them. Later on, when Vasudeva passed away, he performed his funeral ceremony in the absence of Krishna. While Arjuna was taking all the wives of Krishna to Indraprastha, he was attacked on the way, and he could not protect the ladies in his custody. At last, advised by Vyasadeva, all the brothers headed for Mahaprasthana. On the way, at the request of his brother, he gave up all important weapons as useless, and he dropped them all in the water. Okay. So I think right here at the end, it's Arjuna officially, surrendering fully to Krishna and given up his earthly duty and dumping his weapons in the water, which for a Kshatriya is considerably hard to do. They are very much attached to their weapons, so him surrendering his weapons is finally just him giving in to Krishna and saying, "Take me home." Okay. So let's come to verse 22 here. Okay. Rajendra iva vikranto nisevyo himavan iva titikshur vasudevaso sahisna pitara viva. Okay, synonyms. Mrigendra, voice cracked there, means the lion. Eva, like. Vikranta, powerful. Nishevya, worthy of taking shelter. Himavan, the Himalayan mountains. Eva, like. Titaksha, for forbearance. Vasudaiva, like the earth. Shao, the child. Sahishna, tolerant. Pitaro, parents. Eva, like. Okay, translation. This child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy a shelter as the Himalayan mountains. He will be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as his parents. Okay. Okay, so I think a lot of these synonyms that this verse has in it are pretty straightforward. I just wanted to draw special attention here to as worthy a shelter as the Himalayan mountains. The Himalayan mountains are cold. The previous verse was also referring to King Parikshit as warm as a fire. And so the Himalayan mountains are also a very cold place, and him being a shelter provides warmth in the cold. So it's kind of continuing specifically the verse 21's description of him. They are very well. I like that a lot. And strong as a lion, of course, he's a warrior, forbearing like the earth. So generous and tolerant in his rule. Okay. So the purport here. One is compared to the lion when one is very strong in chasing an enemy. One should be a lamb at home and a lion in the chase. The lion never fails in the chase of an animal. Similarly, the head of the state should never fail in chasing an enemy. The Himalayan mountains are famous for all richness. There are innumerable caves to live in, numberless trees of good fruits to eat, good springs to drink water, and profuse drugs and minerals to cure diseases. Any man who is not materially prosperous can take shelter of these great mountains, and he will be provided with everything required. Both the materialist and the spiritualist can take advantage of the great shelter of the Himalayas. On the surface of the earth there are so many disturbances caused by the inhabitants. In the modern age the people have begun to detonate atomic weapons on the surface of the earth, and still the earth is forbearing to the inhabitants. Like a mother who excuses a little child. There's a really cool quote, and it's from a pundit of Islam, but Ali, who was the Prophet Muhammad's brother, he said, be like a flower who leaves his scent even on the foot that crushes it. And that's what that specific sentence there in the purport reminds me of. Parents are always tolerant to children for all sorts of mischievous acts. An ideal king may be possessed of all these good qualities, and the child Parikshit is foretold to have all these qualities in perfection. Okay? So, let's go on to verse 23 here, if nobody has any comments or questions on that one. Okay. Pitamaha sama shamye prashade girish sopama ashraya sarva bhutanam yatta deva ramasharaya. Pitamaha, the grandfather of Brahma. Sama, equally good. Shamye, in the matter. Prashad, in charity or in munificence. Jirisha, Lord Shiva. Upama, comparison of equilibrium. Ashraya, resort. Sarva, all. Bhutanam, of the living beings. Yata, as. Deva, the Supreme Lord. Rama Ashraya, the personality of Godhead. Translation: this child will be like his grandfather, Yudhishthira, or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the Lord of the Kailasha hill, Shiva, and he will be the resort of everyone, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, who is even the shelter of the goddess of fortune. Munificent like Shiva. Munificent. Let's look up the definition of munificent, because I'm not quite familiar with the word. Let's see. It says a gift or sum of money, larger and more generous than is usual or necessary. So Shiva represents consciousness. Yeah, Shiva represents consciousness. So consciousness is munificent. That's an interesting way of thinking about it, because it shows gratefulness to the one who gave it to you, right? So that's really interesting there. I like the way that that's worded. And he will be the resort of everyone, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, who is even the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune. Okay. Purport. Mental equanimity refers both to Maharaj Yudhishthira and to Brahma, the grandfather of all living beings. According to Sridhara Swami, the grandfather referred to is Brahma, but according to Vishwanatha Chakravarti, Chakravarti means the one meant to be king, or spiritual and state ruler. The grandfather is Maharaj Yudhishthira himself, but in both cases the comparison is equally good because both of them are recognized representatives of the Supreme Lord, and thus both of them have to maintain mental equanimity, being engaged in welfare work for the living being. Any responsible executive agent at the top of administration has to tolerate different types of onslaughts from the very persons for whom he works. Brahmaji was criticized even by the gopis, the highest perfectional devotees of the Lord. Yeah, so if you guys remember, oh, wait a second. I was getting off on a different tangent. Never mind. Any responsible executive agent at the top of administration has to tolerate different types of onslaughts from the very persons for whom he works. Brahmaji was criticized even by the gopis, the highest perfectional devotees of the Lord. The gopis were dissatisfied with the work of Brahmaji because Lord Brahma, as a creator of this particular universe, created eyelids which obstructed their seeing Lord Krishna. They could not tolerate a moment's blinking of the eyes, for it kept them from seeing their beloved Lord Krishna. So what to speak of others who were naturally very critical of every action of a responsible man? Similarly, Maharaj Yudhishthira had to cross over many difficult situations created by his enemies, and he proved to be the most perfect maintainer of mental equanimity in all critical circumstances. Therefore, the example of both grandfathers for maintaining equanimity of mind is quite fitting. Lord Shiva is a celebrated demigod who awards gifts to beggars. His name is therefore Ashutosha, or one who is pleased very easily. He is also called the Bhutanatha, or the Lord of the common folk, who are mainly attached to him because of his munificent gifts. Okay. Even without consideration of the after effects. The munificent gifts of consciousness are remembering Krishna. That is the munificent gift of consciousness. Because that is true happiness, and that is more than we deserve for what we have done in forgetting Krishna to begin with. Haribo. Ravana was very attached to Lord Shiva, and by pleasing him, Ravana became so powerful that he wanted to challenge the authority of Lord Rama. Of course, Ravana was never helped by Lord Shiva when he fought with Rama. The Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Lord of Lord Shiva. To Vrikashura, Lord Shiva awarded a benediction which was not only awkward but also disturbing. Vrikashura became empowered by the grace of Lord Shiva to vanish anyone's head simply by touching it. Although this was awarded by Lord Shiva, the cunning fellow wanted to make an experiment of the power by touching the head of Lord Shiva. Well, that's stupid. Thus the Lord had to take shelter of Vishnu to save himself from trouble. and the Lord Vishnu, by his illusory potency, asked Frikashara to make an experiment with his own head. The fellow did it and was finished himself, so that the Lord was saved from all sorts of trouble by such a cunning beggar of the demigods. The excellent point is that Lord Shiva never denies anyone any sort of gift. He is therefore the most generous, although sometimes some kind of a mistake is made. Rama means the goddess of fortune, and her shelter is Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the maintainer of all living beings. There are innumerable living beings, not only on the surface of this planet, but also in all other hundreds of thousands of planets. All of them are provided with all necessities of life for the progressive march towards the end of self-realization. But on the path of sense gratification, they are put into difficulty by the agency of Maya, the illusory energy, and so travel the path of a false plan of economic development. Such economic development is never successful because it is illusory. These men are always after the mercy of the illusory goddess of fortune, but they do not know that the goddess of fortune can live only under the protection of Vishnu. Without Vishnu, the goddess of fortune is an illusion. We should therefore seek the protection of Vishnu instead of directly seeking the protection of the goddess of fortune. Only Vishnu and the devotees of Vishnu can give protection to all, and because Maharaj Parikshit was himself protected by Vishnu, it was quite possible for him to give complete protection to all who wanted to live under his rule. Okay, so if there's no comments or questions there, we can move on to verse 24, which might be the last verse for the night, depending how long the purport is. There might be time left for one more verse after this. Okay, so verse 24 here. Sharvashad guna mahatmya Esha Krishnam anuvrata Ranti deva ivodaro Yayati riva dharmika. Okay, synonyms. Sarvasatguna mahatmye, glorified by all godly attributes. Esha, this child. Krishna, like Lord Krishna. Anuvrata, a follower in his footsteps. Rantideva, Eva, like. Udara, in the matter of magnanimity. Yayati, Eva, like. Dharmika, discerning religion. Welcome, Kamadeva. Thank you for showing up. I hope you catch the first 45 minutes of the talk. I think I had some good points there, and I do hope you go back and watch it. So, translation of that verse will be, this child will be almost as good as Lord Krishna by following in his footsteps. In magnanimity, he will become as great as King Rantideva. And in religion, he will be like Maharaj Yayati. Okay. Alright, purport. The last instruction of Lord Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is that one should give up everything and should follow in the footsteps of the Lord alone. Less intelligent persons do not agree to this great instruction of the Lord, as ill luck would have it, but one who is actually intelligent catches up this sublime instruction and is immensely benefited. Foolish people do not know that association is the cause of acquiring qualities. Association with fire makes an object hot, even in the material sense. Therefore, association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead makes one qualified like the Lord. As we have discussed previously, one can achieve 78% of the godly qualities by the Lord's intimate association. To follow the instructions of the Lord is to associate with the Lord. The Lord is not a material object whose presence one has to feel for such association. The Lord is present everywhere and at all times. It is quite possible to have his association simply by following his instruction, because the Lord and his instruction and the Lord and his name, fame, attributes, and paraphernalia are all identical with him, being absolute knowledge. Maharaj Parikshit associated with the Lord even from the womb of his mother up to the last day of his valuable life, and thus he acquired all the essential good qualities of the Lord in all perfection. Okay, we've got a subheading here for Rantideva. An ancient king prior to the Mahabharata period, referred to by Narada Muni while instructing Sanjaya. As mentioned in Mahabharata, Dronaparva 67, he was a great king, liberal for hospitality and distribution of foodstuff. Even Lord Sri Krishna praised his acts of charity and hospitality. He was blessed by the great Vasistha Muni for supplying him cold water, and thus he achieved the heavenly planet. He used to supply fruits, roots, and leaves to the rishis, and thus he was blessed by them with fulfillment of his desires. Although a kshatriya by birth, he never ate flesh in his life. Wow. He was especially hospitable to Vasistha Muni, and by his blessings only he attained the higher planetary residence. He is one of those pious kings whose names are remembered in the morning and evening. Subheading for Yayati. The great emperor of the world and the original forefather of all great nations of the world who belong to the Aryan and Indo-European stock. So this is our grandfather. He is the son of Maharaj Nausha, and he became the emperor of the world due to his elder brothers becoming a great and liberated saintly mystic. He ruled over the world for several thousands of years and performed many sacrifices and pious activities recorded in history. Although his early youth was very lustful and full of romantic stories, he fell in love with Devayani, the most beloved daughter of Shukracharya. Okay. Devayani wished to marry him, but at first he refused to accept her because of her being a daughter of a Brahmana. According to Shastras, a Brahmana could marry the daughter of a Brahmana. They were very much cautious about Varna Shankara population in the world. Shukracharya amended this law of forbidden marriage and induced Emperor Yayati to accept Devayani. Devayani had a girlfriend named Sarmista, who also fell in love with the emperor and thus went with her friend Devayani. Shukracharya forbade Emperor Yayati to call Sarmista into his bedroom, but Yayati could not strictly follow his instruction. He secretly married Sarmista also and begot sons by her. When this was known by Devayani, she went to her father and lodged a complaint. Yayati was much attached to Devayani, and when he went to his father-in-law's place to call her, Shukracharya was angry with him and cursed him to become impotent. Yayati begged his father-in-law to withdraw his curse, but the sage asked Yayati to ask youthfulness from his sons and let them become old as a condition of his becoming potent. He had 5 sons, 2 from Devayani and 3 from Sharmista. From his 5 sons, namely 1 Yadu, 2 Turvashu, 3 Druyu, 4 Anu, and 5 Puru. 5 dynasties, namely 1 the Yadu dynasty, 2 the Yavana Turk dynasty, 3 the Bhoja dynasty, 4 the Malekka dynasty, which are the Greeks, and 5 the Parava dynasty. All emanated to spread all over the world. He reached the heavenly planets by dint of his pious acts, but he fell down from there because of his self-advertisement and criticizing other great souls. After his fall, his daughter and grandson bestowed upon him their accumulated virtues, and by the help of his grandson and friend Shibi, he was again promoted to the heavenly kingdom, becoming one of the assembly members of Yamaraj, with whom he is staying as a devotee. He performed more than 1,000 different sacrifices, gave in charity very liberally, and was a very influential king. His majestic power was felt all over the world. His youngest son agreed to award him his youthfulness when he was troubled with lustful desires, even for 1,000 years. Finally, he became detached from worldly life and returned to the youthfulness again to his son Puru. He wanted to hand over the kingdom to Puru, but his noblemen and the subjects did not agree. But when he explained to his subjects the greatness of Puru, they agreed to accept Puru as the king, and thus Emperor Yayati retired from his family life and left home for the forest. Okay. So Kamadeva, Gary, if you guys have any comments or questions there to discuss, let me know. And if not, I will move on to verse 25, which will probably be our last verse for tonight. Let's see. Yeah, this purport is short, so this should be very easy. Okay. Drachya Bali Sama Krishne Prarada Iva Sadgranaha Graha Ahartai So Shvamedanam Vridanam Paryupasaka Dritya, by patience. Balishama, like Bali Maharaj. Krishna, unto Lord Krishna. Prarada, Prahlad Maharaj. Eva, like Sakraha, devotee of. Harta, performer. Aisha, this child. Ashvamadanam, of Ashvamedha sacrifices. Vredanam, of the old experienced men. Paryukapashaka, follower. Okay, translation. This child will be like Bali Maharaj in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna like Prahlad Maharaj, a performer of many Ashvamedha, horse sacrifices, and a follower of the old and experienced men. So this very much gives the feeling of Sanatana Dharma, which is, strict traditionalism, the worship of nature, our nature, which is, Srimati Radharani and her beloved Krishna. It's the following of our nature. And it's been, an infinite religion since the beginning of time and before. Okay, Kamadeva has a comment here. It says the Greeks and Turks he mentions there are specifically the very ancient ancestors of the Greeks and Turks. Right. Well before they were known as such. So we're thinking about like Mesopotamia there. Okay. Anu is mentioned in the Sumerian texts. Okay. Anu means atomic. Anu's sons were known for being expert in the atomic sciences. And like atomic, that's interesting that you say that because, he was the original Aryan, so atomic as also meaning indivisible, he's the original, so I like that as well. So the purport here, it basically just has a subheading for Bali Maharaj and also Prahlada Maharaj here, so that you can make sense of the surface meaning of the verse here. Okay, Bali Maharaj, one of the 12 authorities in the devotional service of the Lord. Bali Maharaj is a great authority in devotional service because he sacrificed everything to please the Lord and relinquished the connection of a so-called spiritual master who obstructed him on the path of risking everything for the service of the Lord. The highest perfection of religious life is to attain the stage of unqualified devotional service of the Lord without any cause or without being obstructed by any kind of worldly obligation. Bali Maharaj was determined to give up everything for the satisfaction of the Lord, and he did not care for any obstruction whatsoever. He is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, another authority in the devotional service of the Lord. Bali Maharaj and the history of his dealings with Vishnu Vamanadev are described in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavtam, chapter 11 through 24 specifically. Okay, Prahlad Maharaj, a perfect devotee of Lord Krishna, or Vishnu. His father, Hiranyakshipu, chastised him severely when he was only 5 years old for his becoming an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. He was the first son of Hiranyakshipu, and his mother's name was Kayadu. Prahlad Maharaj was an authority in the devotional service of the Lord because he had his father killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, setting the example that even a father should be removed from the path of devotional service if such a father happens to be an obstacle. He had 4 sons, and the eldest son, Virokana, is the father of Bali Maharaj, mentioned above. Okay, so he's his grandpa. The history of Prahlada Maharaj activities is described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. So, one other piece of housekeeping that I forgot to bring up at the beginning of the talk tonight is specifically when King Parikshit witnessed Kali beating a cow. And I remembered hearing that story before, but I couldn't remember the specifics. So I had paused in the video last night to try to remember, though I couldn't. But I remembered the story today while I was at work. Kali was beating the cow that represents, of course, Dharma. And what he ended up doing was breaking the 4th leg of the cow of Dharma. And as we know, in the 4th age, the age of Kali, as we are in right now, that is an attribute of the Kali Yuga, is that the cow of Dharma doesn't have any hooves left to stand. So if I am misrepresenting this story, Kamadeva, you can let me know. But so that's interesting, specifically because that is exactly when the Kali Yuga started. Is when Kali was beating the cow there on the road outside of the city, when King Parikshit caught him. So, but that will do for tonight's talk. If anybody has any comments or questions, I am welcome to talk about those for another 5 minutes or so. I hope you guys had a great day. Kamadeva, I'm very much so looking forward to your talk tomorrow. If anybody else is watching or ends up watching this later on YouTube or on Facebook, make sure you guys tune in to Kamadeva tomorrow night. He's giving a really interesting talk about specifically the flat earth and impersonalism, going more in depth on those subjects. Go ahead, Gary, with your question. I don't mind. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can feel free to add me on Facebook, add Kamadeva. My name is Kakati Das. My name is spelled Kakkhattidas, just like my channel name. Or if you want to look up Kamadeva Das, you can look him up as well. Okay, Gary says 78% of the godly quality numbers. That is a very specific number. Is 78 connected to other things? And it says, I am looking forward to the talk tomorrow, though we'll probably not be able to see it live. Well, I hope you can check it out later. As far as the 78% number, it actually is detailed thoroughly in the Bhagavad Gita. Specifically, what amount of percentage that us as jivas can have in common with the Supreme Godhead. So that is the max amount that we can have in common. I think the most, obviously the most forward advanced devotee, which is of course Brahma, unless I'm mistaken, Kamadeva can correct me here. I think Brahma is 91% or something like that. I know, or maybe it was Vishnu. Vishnu is 91% maybe, and then like Shiva is somewhere in the 80 percentile range, along with a lot of other demigods, and then we are down there at 78%. 78% might even represent Brahma. So if Kamadeva can answer that question, I would be glad to know about it. And actually, I might look it up, because I have Google open here and I can show you. Percentage qualities of Krishna. Let's see. Transcendental qualities. Let's see. Yeah, so these are the 64 transcendental qualities of Krishna. And out of all of these, we can have 78%. So, a lot of interesting things here. This might be a nice topic of study for yourself, Gary, to go ahead and look through these. And I know I would want to go back through these and refresh myself as well. Okay, so... let's see. Okay, here we go. It said that jivas can have 55 of the 64 qualities. Lord Krishna has all 64, of course. Lord Narayana, which is, of course, Vishnu, has 60 of the 64 qualities. So, what I said before seemed to be correct there. Sri Radha, Kamadeva Das here says that Sri Radha has even more qualities beyond Krishna's 100%, thus the number 108. That's correct. And he also says 78% is the ratio of the infinite uniqueness of each living being in relationship to Radha and Krishna. Okay, right. I'm so glad, Gary. I'm glad that you showed up tonight. I hope that you'll continue to show up, and if not, catch all of these later, of course. But Kamadeva Das had another comment here that said Bali Maharaj is assigned to be the next Indra. It's because of him that the Ashura's influence over the earth is being held back right now. He is a main reason why they do not stomp around crushing people underfoot physically as we speak. He is surrounded by Ashuras who do not agree with him on devotional topics and who want to control the earth. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Kama Dave. Okay. Alright, without further ado, I think I'm going to be off for tonight. It's exactly 11:08. Interesting time to end the talk tonight. I look forward to doing more of these, and until later, Jai Shri Radhe Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Love you guys. Good night.